If you ask an entrepreneur, where will your next client come from? And they're like, I have no idea. They just come when they come. That's a time to have a strategy. Marketing can be spaghetti to the wall, and sometimes it is. But if you have different types of pasta to the wall at any point in time, some will actually stick. But if you only do one kind of pasta in the same wall, it's not going to stick. It's not about, oh, let's wake up this morning and start an ad campaign. It's what are your marketing systems that are ensuring you have a pipeline coming in?
Hey, everyone. I'm so excited to talk to Dolores today on Pivot to Profit podcast. Dolores Hirschmann is an internationally recognized investor, strategist, speaker, and founder of Masters in Clarity, a strategy and business coaching firm dedicated to helping service professionals expand their businesses. She recently sold one of her companies to Pete Vargas and Grant Cardone, supporting its growth to multiple 8 figures within 4 years. As a former TEDx organizer, Dolores specializes in helping experts, authors, consultants, coaches, and business owners establish themselves as thought leaders while scaling their businesses. Masters in Clarity provides fractional CMO and team services to help businesses surpass the 7-figure milestone. As an investor, Dolores and her team acquire and grow small businesses to preserve their legacy, ensuring sustainable market contributions and professional operations. Dolores, thank you so much for being here.
I'm very excited for our conversation, Pam.
Awesome. So let's dig right in. Tell me, as you think back, what did you want to be when you were a kid? What was little Dolores's dream?
That's a great question. I remember finishing high school and I wanted to be an actress. That was my dream. And my dad was like, perfect. You go to business school, then we can have a conversation. And he was paying the bills. It was Argentina and there was no acting school. And so I enrolled in business school and I would be, going to school during the day. And then I was a tap dancer at the time. I actually don't know that of me. I was a tap dancer and I would dance, or I was a choreographer. So I was like trying to survive business school, but it has served me really well.
I love it. All that tap dancing on stage made you so confident. It all makes sense.
That makes sense.
I love it. So when you were a kid, what were you taught about money? Was money good? Was money bad? What did that look like for you?
So there's a couple of things, and I remember this vividly. I grew up in Argentina, and there was the entrepreneurial mindset, right? I would look at like a small business, and in Argentina, there's the things called kiosco. A kiosco is really like a small candy store where kids would go, and it's a hole in the wall. It's actually a storefront. It's not like a lemonade stand. It's a little bigger than that. But anyway, I would think like, sometimes it would be 6 p.m. and I said, let's go get some chocolate, and it was closed. And I would think, why would someone close their store if there was someone like me that wanted to buy? And this concept of hustling and serving clients and serving customers. And so that was like, I remember vividly thinking those thoughts. As far as money, as a girl growing up in Argentina is a whole other ballgame, Pam. We don't trust banks. Literally, people keep money under their mattress. And that is literal because they don't even have a safe. It's under the mattress or buried in their backyard. And I am not making this up. I've been paid with wet bills because they were buried in the backyard. And so you can imagine I had zero financial literacy. I didn't know how to work a bank until I got married and moved to the US. And I'm not making that up.
That's amazing. And look where you are. So with the entrepreneurial mindset, as a serial entrepreneur, what was the first big financial milestone that you hit? And like, how did that feel for you?
I had a big entrepreneurial mindset, but with no money knowledge. So I wanted to do things because they were fun and they were adding value to the community. So the first business I built was called Wawas, and it was a clothing business. And it was helping women in Argentina stay home with their kids while doing handmade and handloom knits. And so I would bring this clothing here, and I ended up being in Miami Fashion Week and selling to retail stores in Madison Avenue and Martha's Vineyard and in Providence, Rhode Island, and Boston. And so for me, it was all through the fun of it and the challenge I never focused on the money, but then I started looking at my bank account. I mean, at the time I was a mom with 4 kids and my full-time job was mumming, really. It was a lot of kids. I had them all in 6 years. And so the Wawas at the time, the clothing company, was more a distraction and a hobby. But then I started seeing the money coming. I was paying the bills. There was money left over. Like I had a spreadsheet. There was not even an accountant, but I was like, oh, I paid all the bills and I have $5,000 left over. What do I do with this? And so I started little things like outfitting my office or going on vacation with our family. We called it the fun money. And at the time, young family, just starting, my husband had a full-time job with a fixed paycheck. So the money was already allocated before he earned it. So having fun money was a whole new, opened up my mind. It's like, oh, we can go skiing this weekend and it's okay. So I mean, it's almost embarrassing to say, but that's really how it started. It's like, I love doing this work and I can make money.
At what point in your career did you decide that I have zero money knowledge, I need to learn something? Like, what was that moment for you where it was like, oh crap, this isn't fun money. I'm not playing. I need to learn what I'm doing. When was that?
Probably about 10 years ago. Well, first things is I was the secondary income for a long time, and that changed when something changed in my husband's career. And so all of a sudden, and he typically still runs the bills in the house, but I had realized that I had avoided money conversations with my husband, that I wasn't comfortable. I couldn't intelligently speak about it. And so I avoided it. And it wasn't until I became the main breadwinner and I really needed to understand, okay, what do we need? What does the family need? Where is our money? Do we have an investment? I was in zero for the first 10 years of my marriage. So that was a big awakening. And luckily I have a really great husband and he's very conservative. So we had a lot of money put into life insurance. And so it wasn't bad because I could have found the opposite, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a big moment about 10 years ago.
I agree 100%. I talk to a lot of female entrepreneurs and they just don't talk about money with their husbands. I even had one come to me and say, Pam, can you help me, but don't tell my husband? And I was like, oh, sweetie, that's not no, we need to sit down. So how was Masters in Clarity born? Where did that come from?
So Masters in Clarity. So I did start quite a few businesses at the beginning of my career. And then when I was 38, I went back to school to study coaching because I wasn't sure, I had a very eclectic background with a lot of skill set, but no through line. And I really truly wanted to help people. So Masters in Clarity was an evolution of me becoming a coach, starting to work with people more like a life coach. I worked with big businesses as executive coach and leadership coach. And I realized that I love the coaching, but I love strategy more. And so I moved from my business at the time was DoloresHirschmann.com. It was just me and alone as a solopreneur. And I realized that my skill set was really focused on helping people communicate clearly, speak on stages. At the time, I was a TEDx organizer, another passion project. And so that's where I moved to a name that was not my name, and a name that really communicated what we do, which is we help our clients master their clarity so that they can make intelligent, effective, intentional decisions.
In your entrepreneurial journey, what did you do to help yourself learn about money? Because you learned, how to have conversations with your husband about the household budget and money. But what happened? How did you go and learn about business money? Because it's very different.
It's very different. So a couple of things happened. One, I did go to business school, but they don't teach you in business school how to run a business.
No.
All the ball game. And I learned marketing, but it wasn't marketing that I could apply to being a service professional like we are. So I invested in myself. I invested in masterminds. I invested in coaches. At some point, I actually got clients who were hiring me for their marketing who were financial planners or investment strategists or CPAs or, like you. And I would work with them as a coach in their talks, but they were teaching me a lot of things. And you'll find this funny. Of course, I started learning in those environments of masterminds, and I also hired my first accounting firm, and they supported. But it was a moment when a client of mine was launching a program to teach young adults financial literacy. And she was hesitant about the whole thing. So I said, why don't you work with my daughter, who at the time was about 19 or 20 years old? Let her be your guinea pig, and you can practice, and maybe she can learn something. And it was a perfect decision, because my daughter walked into my office one day and she said, and she was, 19, 20, working with this woman. And she said, Mama, I'm going to be a millionaire when I'm 42. And I'm like, okay, tell me more. And she said, well, I have this and I have this plan and I put this money aside. And like she had a whole structure on how to manage her little money. Like she was 19, 20, she was a sailing instructor making, I don't know, $15 an hour. But she had compartmentalized her earnings in such a way that she could predict her financial stability. And that actually made me more curious. And I started, talking to her, talking to this client, and going deeper into this whole process of how do you build wealth?
Yeah, I loved how
A lot more to go, but
but I love how you utilize the people that you're helping, because if they're doing a course on how to manage money, and as just, I'm a client of yours as well. And so you helped me write my signature talk and write my book. And so as we were having conversations, I'm sure there was things I was like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. The same, as you have conversations with everyone that you work with, you learn as you're helping them find their clarity. That's beautiful. And so what is your focus now? Where is Dolores's time and efforts? What's the focus?
So my focus right now is helping businesses expand their reach through systematic marketing. I mean, and I'm being intentional about that. It's not about, oh, let's wake up this morning and start an ad campaign. It's what are your marketing systems that are ensuring you have a pipeline coming in? And so I do that through our fractional CMO services, our fractional team, which we come in, we put the strategy together, and we execute with you or for you. Like we bring the team that you need. And of course, I continue to teach clients how to speak to grow their business. That is one of the most effective ways to grow a professional service business. So that's part of my focus. And the other focus is the same. The work that we do is the same, but through acquisitions. So instead of having a client hire me, I buy a company out, or I come in as a consultant for equity, which is a combination of retainer and equity. And we help them streamline their marketing, streamline their operations. And I have a client right now I'm working with that we're doing exactly that, with the goal of helping her sell her business in about 5 months. It's not a business I want to buy because of location and geography, but I will get her ready so that she can have the best buyout.
I love that. So as you're looking at these companies for acquisition, numbers are important. So what are you looking at to go in and do these acquisitions or these consulting for equity?
I look for businesses with a profit margin, 15, 20% minimum profit margin, with recurring revenue preferably, and with a history of 3 or 4 or 5 years in business with stabilized financials. That's really what we're looking for. And size-wise, we're looking for $250,000 SDE or more a year. SDE meaning you could call it EBITDA in a big company. SDE is seller discretionary earning, because small businesses is more like that. It's sellers.
Yeah.
But we look for 250 or more.
And so then what do? You find a client that has good profit margins, recurring revenue. They've been in business for a while. And then what value are you bringing? What does that look like?
So we look for businesses that need better marketing or more marketing.
Okay.
And operational efficiency. So for example, I'm working with a company right now. We had a meeting this morning, and we're probably going to move forward with this. They're doing zero marketing. They've been around for 15 years. They have clients that have been with them for 10 years, and the owner is moving on to another project. They have an operator who runs the business, without him. And so it wouldn't take much to just turn on some marketing and get some more clients. So a business that's making $250 a year in SDE with zero marketing, I can do something with that easily.
I love that.
So that's what we're dealing with right now.
And so that's what the work is now. Okay. So let's talk about the exit that you had, because it was quite impressive with some fun names and a lot of lessons learned. So walk us through any of that you want to share.
First of all, I would say that when we talk about exits, acquisitions, there's no one way to do it. And the more open-minded you are, more creative, the more fun you're going to have and the better results you're going to have. So the beauty of this story I want to share is that it was an acquisition, non-acquisition. So at the time, I had a service under my brand, which is Masters in Clarity. I had a service of getting people on stages. And so this other firm, Pete Vargas, wanted to offer this under his brand. And so he didn't need or want my whole business. He wanted the intellectual property, the processes that I was using to fulfill on that service. So what we did was a licensing. He licensed my intellectual property for a period of time. And what I negotiated that every percent of every dollar net gross revenue that came in would come to me. Simple, really simple. And we did as phantom equity, which means that I wasn't an actual equity holder of the business legally, but by contract I was. And the disbursement was specified as a percentage of top line revenue. So it was really simple to calculate. If a dollar came in, I got a percentage. And there were no legal implications if something went wrong because the business was entity-wise 100% his. And I had no tax obligations, which was even better.
Nice.
You want to be very careful when you do a partnership that you are clear on all the taxations and all the splits and what type of entity it is and all of the things I didn't want to deal with. And so that was a very sweet deal. And there was no money invested up front because there was nothing up front. And so I put my sweat equity for about 2 or 3 months. So no money coming my way. But I knew that the moment we collected money from our clients, I would get paid within 30 days. There was a contract. So we started work in December. People, let's say, paid in January. By February 15, I was getting recurring 5 figures and growing.
And so you're helping them. They're using your IP under a licensing deal, kind of like a carve out.
I'm advising them. So I was an advisor. I didn't have a full-time job. So I was running my business as usual. And there was a full-time team for this service. And I was an advisor. So I would sit in meetings, make sure they were doing things right and all the things. And I was very involved. Of course, it was my interest to give it my all. And so we did that for 2 years. And then this other entity, Grant Cardone, wanted to offer this service under his umbrella and his brand. And so he and Pete negotiated a deal and they became partners 50-50. And so at that time, I stepped out of the partnership and instead I negotiated to be the director of what is now called 10X Stages and ran that company for 2 years. And because of the partnership we had and because of the contribution I had done, it was a very lucrative W-2. And I knew I was going to do 2 years only. And so that's what I did. And so the beauty is that by the time I stepped out of that role and went back full-time into Masters in Clarity, which I did in the last 18 months, I had my whole, because it was a license and that contract ended, I have all my IP is mine. I didn't sell it. I have all the rights to all my knowledge and all my processes. So here I am back offering and servicing people in the speaking space and the booking placement space.
Okay. I love it. Thank you for sharing that journey. I was actually,
I rented my business.
It is. And, from the sidelines, I was able to have conversations with you during all that. So it was very interesting to see how you structured that. I love it. So now that the focus is on Masters in Clarity and helping businesses scale as well as acquisition, help our listeners who are business owners understand what a fractional CMO is and help them identify when it's time for them to raise their hand and say, it's me, it's time, let's go.
So a fractional CMO, so what is a CMO? A Chief Marketing Officer. Fractional is like, it's fractional of the cost, fractional of the time. It really what it is a business, as it grows, it needs more and more marketing. I mean, we start with the inner circle, the network that we have, little events we go on as solopreneurs, we start growing little by little. But there's a moment in time when you have kind of like that referral network has dried up, and you need to, to scale your pipeline. So you need a marketer. And marketing is not waking up one morning and saying, I'm going to send a newsletter, or waking up one morning saying, okay, I'm going to put some money on an Instagram. Marketing is really understanding a strategic, cohesive plan that with all the pieces together, because as we know, marketing can be spaghetti to the wall, and sometimes it is. But if you have different types of pasta to the wall at any point in time, some will actually stick. But if you only do one kind of pasta in the same wall, it's not going to stick. So you gotta have different initiatives going on at any time. And something initiatives that you might turn on and turn off in a period or a season of the business in a year, and some that need to be at play all the time to have a result. Like if you're gonna speak, if you speak once every 3 years, it might be good for you, but it won't have lasting results. But if you're speaking consistently, even if it's a small room or a virtual room once a month, and you have a system after speaking that nurtures that lead over time. I've had people, actually, I met someone this week on a call who has been in my mailing list for 90 years. And she's like, I read every single email and I'm so excited to meet you. And maybe we now have to work together. So don't underestimate those emails that you think nobody reads, because people do read them, and people do make decisions based on the consistency of you showing up in their lives.
When should an entrepreneur raise their hand and say, I need a CMO? What are some triggers for them?
So when they see that their sales calls are drying up, where they are, if you ask an entrepreneur, where will your next client come from? And they're like, I have no idea. They just come when they come. That's a time to have a strategy, because you need predictable lead sources.
And for business owners, how much should they be spending on marketing?
So they should be spending about, actually, if you think about it in percentage, they should be spending anything from 10 to 20% top line revenue.
All right. That's huge. So you're saying that a business of some size should be paying 10 to 20% of top line revenue on marketing.
So if you have $500,000 top line revenue, you should be spending up. 20 might be too much, but let's say $50,000 a year. What does that mean? That's let's say you hire as a fractional CMO that costs anything from $1,500 to $3,000 a month on taking actions and strategy, and then you put $2,000 a month on ad spend, or $1,500 a month on ad spend, or sponsoring events. That math will give you about $50,000 a year.
I love it.
So $5,000 a month.
What are some KPIs, key performance indicators, that entrepreneurs should be looking for from their marketing to know that it's working, to make sure that ROI is there?
Yeah. So I don't really care about followers. Followers are nice. I want people who subscribe to your free resource. So people inside your email list, sales calls, how many conversations you or your team is having every week, and how many of those are actually turning into clients. The conversion rate. Those are the main three that will really tell you what's going on. If you want to go into the leading indicators, more like what can feed into that is how many speaking engagements are you having every month, or how many referrals are you getting from your referral network. Like you can go out a little bit. It's just a speaking engagement won't necessarily convert into clients until later on. But a metric, if you're going to speak, how many speaking engagements do you have? How many from that speaking engagement are opting into your list, and how many conversations are you having right after?
And you do work with a lot of entrepreneurs to help them get on stages and to help write their talks. So what are you doing now to help entrepreneurs get on stages? Because you don't have the typical agency model where you go out and represent like, hey, so-and-so, Pam's one of my clients. She's a great speaker. You should use her. You use a very different approach. So explain that.
Yeah. First of all, why don't I use that? Because I tried that and it doesn't work as well as what I'm doing right now. Really? That's experience. So why doesn't it work? So first of all, you want the the engine, call it speaker agent, to be in-house for many reasons. One, you want it to be on your email address. You want it to be fast in responding to any inquiries or more information, and in booking. When you have an outside agency, that becomes really clunky. So what I do now is I actually train my entrepreneurs and their teams on having an in-house stage agent, which is what you have. And not only do I train them, but I also give them a tool that I've created to put themselves in front of meeting planners consistently. It's called Stage Booking System. It's an engine that really accelerates that level of conversation and connection. And it uses an established database. There's no research that needs to be done on the agent side because we're using a platform like LinkedIn to do that. And so what we're doing right now is we're working with companies. Some are solopreneurs, some are companies with teams, and we have an online group program that we offer where you can enroll your team. They can be coached by us. The program includes the software, and that way you can actually consistently be on stages.
Yeah. And it's a program that my team is using to help me get on stages, and it's working. So I love it. I love it. All right. So let's wrap up with a couple questions. These are rapid response questions. So no explanation, just answer with what you got. You ready?
Yeah.
Profit or growth?
Profit.
What's one business expense you'll never cut, no matter what?
Good accounting firm.
What's the best money advice you've ever received?
Put your money to work.
Okay. And what does financial freedom mean to you?
Financial freedom means to me that I can go on vacation. I can take December off, knowing that the financial safety is there and it's either an engine working for me like my business or investments that I have.
I love it. I love it.
Peace of mind.
Peace of mind. I love it. Dolores, thank you so much for being on Pivot to Profit and sharing your profit story with us. How can our audience get in touch with you?
So the best way is to come to mastersinclarity.com. And there's a free button right there. Click it and you have all kinds of free resources.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your valuable time. And for our listeners, if there's anything that we can help you do more to understand your numbers, increase your profit, reduce your taxes, or grow your wealth, simply go to pamjordan.com. And remember, it's not about what you make, it's what you keep.